Part 2 of 52, the why of teaching. Not only is it important for us as teachers to know the subject that we are teaching and to be passionate about it, but learn what led up to it. Is there a movement that caused this subject to be brought to light? Why is it that we teach this subject? And very specific to you, why do you teach this subject? Why should learners learn this study? In this week's material, we want to pay close attention to the why of what it is that we do. Coming to a deeper understanding of the why of teaching is something that we won't be able to cover in completeness here. So this will really be more of a 2-week lesson. So let's go ahead and focus on part 1. One of the first things that you probably want to go ahead to bring to mind here is that teaching is a process. It is not an event, period. Even if the class that you have is short, or if the meeting that you have with the student is just a small office visit so that they can make sure that everybody has the proper information in hand. Teaching is not something where you touch someone one time and all of the information is passed back and forth. It's a process by which you give everyone the subject, you explain what's involved, they sit down and listen or go hand by hand through the process of creating this. It is something that you have to do together. Within the classroom or the teaching environment, make sure that you have a process in place, one that you know will work, one that you know will transfer the information. That way, you will have a clear plan where, in the process of teaching, you are at all times. Some students will try to hijack this process and call the shots, and sometimes that's welcomed by teachers and sometimes that's not. But if you know you have a plan, and the plan is based on a teaching process, a process that works for you, you will always know where you are. You'll always know if you're on task. You'll always know if you're hitting the points that you need to. You'll always know if you need to assign something extra to make sure that everyone is able to be on point for the next class that you have. So, I heavily suggest make a list, make a plan. Make sure that you know what you're going to teach and how you're going to teach it, and, if possible, have a backup plan as to what you will do if you run short on time. Many teachers find that by adding in a hands-on component, they are able to assure that if the worst case scenario happens, and they fail to teach all the material in the time provided, they always have some of that hands-on time available to themselves and to the students to pick up any additional learning. By having this standard roadmap, if you will, students will be able to follow what you're trying to cover and how you're trying to get there, and you will have a list that will let you know what you're trying to get to and how far you've come, how much is left to do, and whether you'll be able to make it in the time that you have left. To enjoy greater flexibility and success as a teacher, you need to know what steps you'll be teaching and how you will teach those steps to your students. Walk your students through them, make sure they're able to apply the information that you're giving them, and give them a hands-on component which they can practice. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this process will require some flexibility. You shouldn't always have 100% of your class time planned because questions will come up along the way. Students will have stories they'll want to share. You may have stories that you need to go into. You may have explanations which may require explanations in and of themselves. So make sure that you are flexible in how you approach these classes. Another great thing to understand about teaching is, of course, that it's a two-person or more process. It's not a one-touch event where everything is transferred automatically. It's a process where people are involved. When people are involved, it's a good idea to ensure that you are creating a relationship with the members of your class. As you are building that relationship with your class students, take the time to find out from them what their wants and needs are. What do they want to learn from your class? What do they need to learn from the class? And what, if anything, is driving those wants and needs? As you come to realize the ultimate goal of the students, it will allow you to create a stronger and firmer relationship with each and every one of them. For instance, if one student wishes to be a teacher, you can use that student to teach a student whose skills may be lacking where that student is best. Another student may wish to move into independent business, in which case you may make suggestions about designs or other products that they could use on a freelance basis, or small business decisions that they could make to make the kinds of networking connections that gets a real business going. Again, teaching is not something you do to someone. Teaching is something you do with someone. So find out what their wants and needs are and do what you can to firm the relationship between the two of you, to ground the relationship of the understanding between the student and the work, and make sure you are encouraging them to push forward at all times. Over time, as the relationship grows, you will hope to find, or you will find, I hope, the connection that really allows a student to get it. And once they get it, you can always use that button to make sure that the student is pushing themselves to the limit each and every time. This brings us to the second portion of this, which is that you can spend your time telling students who don't get it to try harder and to push themselves, or you can help them solve problems by explaining to them what needs to be done and explaining to them how they can solve their own problems. Believe me, you will head off more problems by teaching a student to solve their own issues or to realize what's missing from their process than you will by constantly telling them over and over again that they need to push themselves or they're not doing well enough. Many students know they're not pushing themselves, and they know they're not trying hard enough. And frankly, your opinion of that is not going to sway them one way or the other. They need to care. When you point out a problem, you give a short-term solution. However, when you help them to see the problems, when you help them to recognize the problems before it happens, and you teach them to solve the problem once it occurs, then you will find that you're making a strong connection. You will find that you are adding value to your role in the process. You will find that you are making a stronger connection with a student who is now independent. They can see their own issues. They can solve their own problems. they can try and succeed on their own. And once you are showing a student how they can take their work to that next level, then you will find that you have created a student who will give you more positive feedback, that will tell other students about what they've learned and how they've learned it. And you will find students who choose to take your classes more and more and more often. Don't spend your time, however, pointing out a problem thinking that a student has the solution. More often than not, give them the benefit of the doubt that they can understand how to recognize their own problems, and they can understand how to solve their own problems. If you feel that by simply pointing out they have a problem, they can solve it themselves, you are almost always dead wrong. If they could solve every problem themselves, they wouldn't need an education. And if they didn't need an education, they certainly wouldn't need you. So, in order to practice this today, over the next week or so, as you are finding that you are encountering students with problems, train them how to recognize and solve these problems on their own so that they can come to a solution before they have to ask. We're here at the end of week 2. I hope you found this week's lesson something you can apply in your classroom. Please share this video with anyone that you know that may gain a benefit. Please feel free to leave a comment down below. Subscribe so that you don't miss any of our information on how to become a better teacher in 52 weeks. And, of course, completely destroy that like button. Really blow it up. Get as many people as you can to enjoy it, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. As such, get out there, push yourself, and by all means, as always, design your future.